sports are really important vehicles for relationships.
We have purpose. We have a why. We bring people together. We connect.
I feel like God is our greatest supporter and our greatest coach.
Welcome to Rabbi on the Sidelines. This is Rabbi Erez Sherman from Sinai Temple in Los Angeles. This week we are joined doubly blessed by two basketball players at Binghamton University in upstate New York. Their story is truly amazing. It's the story of the Jewish people. It's the story of the intersection of sports and faith. I'm honored to be joined by captain of the University of Binghamton University's basketball team, Haley Moore, and Mia Raskin. Haley and Mia, it's so wonderful to have you. How you guys doing?
Good. Thanks for having us.
Great. So first, I want to start with a story for everybody to understand how special this is for me. Because as I just told Mia, I have not seen Mia since the day she was born. And I'm going to give context to that. I was a freshman at the Jewish Theological Seminary of America, living in Matilda Schechter Residence Hall, now a blessed memory. And when I was a freshman, then Adam and Sari Raskin, now Rabbi Adam Raskin and Sari Raskin of Har Shalom in Potomac, Maryland, were actually the resident directors, basically known as the dorm parents. And so they welcomed me to my college experience and really larger Jewish community. And during that year, at the end of the year, was it April? When's your birthday, Mia?
April 27th. Great memory.
Okay.
Wow.
I remember. Yes, it was the end of our freshman year, and there was a new delivery to our dorm, and that was Mia Raskin. So how many years ago was that?
Almost 21 now.
Almost 21 years ago. So it makes me feel a bit elderly at this moment, but really proud of speaking to you. But today we're actually here to speak not about your birth, but really about your journey from that day to this moment. And it includes sports and it includes faith. I've actually watched over the years your basketball journey, first at the Berman Hebrew Academy, but then also most recently your amazing, insightful intellectual article in the Times of Israel. So let's actually start with your faith journey. And also, by the way, we're in the same club. We are PKs. We are Rabbi's children. So let's talk about first. We're on a show about sports and faith. Let's talk the faith. What was your life growing up as a rabbi's child like, and what did you love so much about it that, in fact, you have continued your Jewish observance at a high level even to this day?
Right. So, I think a huge part of it goes out to my parents, and they get a huge credit to where I am right now, not just basketball, but also the faith part. I wrote in my article that there was never anything coercive in our house. There was never like, you have to do this. There were some standards, like you dress a little bit nicer on Shabbat. We host on Shabbat. And I think that those things helped build my character and helped me teach at a young age how to speak to people of all different ages, of all different backgrounds, and being understanding. But I think that the part that I'm most grateful for from being a PK or an RK, and for my parents specifically, is how they were able to like separate the job and then also our family's values and figuring out how they intersect, but also the importance of keeping both like work and life separate at certain times also.
So as a child, what was in the sports journey? Was it, signing up for JCC basketball? Was it playing softball? What was that initial journey into sports? Now I'm a dad and have a 10, 8, and 6-year-old, and we're just getting into that world as well. When did you realize that, wow, I actually love a game that I want to continue and pursue? Right.
So like most Jewish elementary school kids, like my parents were signing me up for like every possible sports program. So it was softball and soccer and gymnastics and basketball. And like, let's just like kind of find like where Mia feels the most successful, which was very cool. And I lived in Dallas at the time, and there was no girls.
Shout out to Sherith Israel.
Yes. Shout out to Sherith Israel and Beth Torah. But there was no girls league. So I was playing with boys up until about 5th grade, like weekly. And I just loved it. And I was always going to camp, and I was like that one girl or one of the two girls with all the boys up until about like 10 years old.
And so that's up until 10 years old. And then when did you realize, you know what, I'm going to go to middle school, I'm going to go to high school, and I maybe can pursue something at a higher level? And take us to the AAU circuit, maybe explain what AAU is even all about and how that sometimes contradicted with your faith life.
Right, for sure. So actually in Dallas, my mom realized that like it would be important for me to play with girls every so often. So she signed me up for my like first like semi-AAU program, but they played Friday evenings. So my mom and my grandfather would like switch off picking me up like within the 18 minutes before Shabbat started. And like I'd stay till like the second half, and then I'd leave halfway through the game. I wouldn't know what the outcome was.
But
like,
stop right there. So what was that like? The coach just lets you leave in the middle of the game, and
I mean, the irony of it all was that it was a Jewish coach, so like he understood different practice, but still understood it. And then when I moved to Maryland, I still played all of the sports I could in middle school, but around high school time, I sat down with my parents and we were like, well, I'm really committed to this sport specifically. Like, this is where I'm happiest. And that's when I really started. It was like a really great opportunity to get exposed to different college level opportunities, playing against girls at a really high level instead of just like girls in your league necessarily. And so around 9th grade, I joined a team as just a practice player because like we couldn't really navigate Shabbat just yet. And then a Jewish coach from pluralistic day school in my area texted me about like probably going to 10th or 11th grade, like, hey, I'm an assistant coach for this team. I can help explain to the head coach how this will all work. And like in that moment, I was like, okay, let's do it. Like, and I tried out for a more intense, exclusive program. And that's where like I really feel like my basketball career took off and most of my growth came from.
So actually, let's go to Haley for a moment. Haley did not grow up Jewish. She's from New Jersey, but went to Catholic high school. And first, let's talk about your experience, why you chose, you said, a Catholic school, and what that looked like in terms of the faith experience. You just told me before there was a prayer before each game. So Haley, tell us a little about yourself. And I know you grew up in the sports world, actually, less in the faith world and more in the sports world. So Haley Moore, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the reason why I chose to go to that high school was because sports was such a big part of my life growing up. And the Catholic school that I went to for 4 years was like dominant in the basketball world. So that's kind of why I chose it. But in the faith world at that school, it was different for me, you know, coming as a freshman and not really being Catholic and not studying any of the religion that my teammates and like the rest of the school. So it was different for me, but it wasn't something that I was opposed to, and it was just something I had to adjust to. So like you said, we prayed for every game. I had to go to church a few times a week with my team and stuff. So it was different, but it wasn't something that I didn't like. I actually enjoyed it. I got to learn a lot. And yeah, it was a nice 4 years. It was good to like be around all that.
And what was your experience with the Jewish community before you met somebody like Mia?
Honestly, there wasn't. I mean, the town that I live in New Jersey is like predominantly Jewish. So I don't have that much. I didn't have really any experience with it prior to meeting Mia. So it was really cool. It was really eye-opening to kind of like see it and be around it.
So Mia, you get into the AAU circuit, and then actually heard a little interview from another colleague of mine and a good friend, Rabbi Jeremy Fine, and the great Rabino, and he talked about actually you talked about going to Brandeis, which is a pretty Jewish university, but actually basketball was not going to be able to work out because they travel on Shabbat. So talk about the recruiting process and when you realized that maybe basketball was not going to be in the cards for your college experience.
Yeah, so at my Jewish day school where I graduated, Berman Hebrew Academy, it's very typical for you to take a gap year in Israel. Mm-hmm. And like teachers are always really pressing you on it. Like, so where are you thinking about going? And this starts like in 10th grade. The same way that the college process would work is the gap year process. So there's a lot of pressure to like figure that out. And I think in about 10th or 11th grade, I like sat down with my parents and I was like, I don't know if I want to go to Israel for the year because like I think I want to like see out basketball. And if I take a year off, like chances are I'm not going to be able to like it's very hard unless you're going to Yeshiva University that you're not going to be able to really live out that both dreams. Mm-hmm. So with that, that's when we really like committed to the AAU circuit. And I was like flying to Waukegan, Illinois and walking 4 miles to like the Nationals or the DC tournament ended on a Friday. So like that was great. And my mom would drive me the second Shabbat was over Saturday night and I'd be there for the 2 games Sunday. So I still get a little bit of exposure, still get to meet coaches. But when I met with the Brandeis coach and she like was looking through my film, she said like 2 things. One is you're going to have to make religious compromises. We literally only travel Friday nights and Saturday afternoons. And I was like, well, like there goes my dream of playing like at like a pretty high Division III school. And then the other thing was like, if you actually are considering this, you need to show me higher level game film. Like my Jewish day school film was not good enough. Like to no surprise, like it's not the most intense program ever.
I have mine right here, but I'm not going to bring it up right now.
I think you should show it on the broadcast. But so at different tournaments, coaches would come up to me from like D3, D2 schools and be like, hey, can I have your contact information? And more often than not, it was on Shabbat. And in that moment, I was already given the opportunity to basically explain, like, I actually can't pick up your pen right now. I can't write down my name. But if you want, I can tell you all my information and reach out to me like later on in the week. So that did happen a couple times. It was like funny getting like emails from Bible College and Messiah College.
Oh, nice. Right.
Hey, Messiah, I'm all about that. Let's do it. But at a certain point, I was like, this is not a lifestyle that I think is going to be worthwhile for me.
So on the men's side, there's experience with this now. Tamir Goodman, who is the same year as my high school graduation in 2000, right? When I was playing at a secular private school, I could tell the coach, look at this guy. He's about to go to the University of Maryland. We can change a game from a Friday to a Thursday. Now Tamir's doing amazing things. You just mentioned Yeshiva University with Ryan Terrell. I'm going to the NBA draft a year early, right? And ESPN writing stories about him. And Mike Sweetney, who's played for Georgetown, now coaching for Yeshiva University. Was there somebody in the women's game that you had an opportunity to look up to follow this model, or are you now the trendsetter for young women coming up the pike now?
I mean, I guess like it's like a fortunate, unfortunate situation, right? Because I don't know how many women there have been that have been able to go through this. I know that I'm pretty sure she played for like Boise State, but there's an Israeli who played there who really introduced the idea of like kashrut and keeping kosher on the road. And our coach coached a couple Israelis at Louisville. I think she talks about that a lot. And so, but like they were never like known because you would always have to like make all these compromises. And I hope that what I'm showing is like, yeah, this is like a very unconventional way that all this like played out. And I don't know how many people are going to be able to relate to this story. However, I do hope that girls who notice that they're talented really early on no longer look at like their Judaism as a hurdle to getting to like their dreams. And I hope that they see their Judaism as a tool to creating relationships and a beautiful experience, not necessarily just as rules that are constantly constraining you from what you want to do. So I hope that I'm setting that tone. That like if you keep working hard, keep pushing, like anything's possible. But at the same time, like yes, I might not have any female role models, but seeing stories like Tamir Goodman and having a really nice relationship with him actually from being in my year in Israel. We were on the phone yesterday and he's like, Mia, you're making me so proud. And I was like, nice. Tamir, you too. Like everything that you're doing right now with the Aviv Net is absolutely incredible. And
now a new PJ Library book that just came out about dyslexia. Yep. That's
like amazing. Like he is changing the world. He's changing that point of view. And if I can be put in anywhere in the same tier as him, like that's a true honor in itself. So I hope that this is only the beginning.
So one last question before we get to the relationship between now, then you and Haley and Binghamton. Take us to the gap year, because you said maybe I wasn't going to do that, but all of a sudden you find yourself in a yeshiva studying Gemara and rabbinic tradition. Why did you decide to do that, number one? And then what did basketball look like during the year? Was it just following, Maccabi Tel Aviv, Hapoel Yerushalayim, or were you also finding courts that you could keep your skills up?
So going to Israel for the year was probably the best decision I could have ever made in my life.
Amen.
Yeah, it wasn't about like any like physical change or physical growth. It was about like really learning who I am and my values and where I want to be. And I don't think that I could have done this whole experience as well as I feel like I had without having that foundation that I really feel like I gained independently for the first time in Israel. And I just believe that being able to take on a year of studying Torah and culture and immersing yourself in Israel and in a Jewish country is just something that like you will never, ever get the opportunity to experience like that ever again. And so and there are people that are making it work still playing basketball in Israel. And when I was in Israel, I was playing about 3 or 4 times a week, sometimes with Tamir, sometimes just with friends, sometimes outside indoors. The YMCA, they call it the Yimka in Israel. God bless them. But, you know, it's certain things like that where I was like, this is still something so important to me. But they really can come together and build like my greatest success. They don't have to like hurt each other. I don't
It's interesting. One of my first guests on this show was Chelsea Hopkins, who's an amazing basketball player in Israel, played for Duke, San Diego State, and interviewing people who are not Jewish that have taken their careers to Israel and learned about not just the Jewish people, but the state of Israel and how it's a beacon to the world. Also has been an amazing experience. And then you bring that Israel experience back to Binghamton. So how do you choose Binghamton? Is it because of the Jewish community, which is amazing? Is it because of a basketball program that you become a manager? Take us to that moment. And then, Haley, I'm going to ask you your first meeting with Mia and what you thought of this fascinating young woman.
I know, I'm nervous. But as much as I'd love to say that I came to Binghamton to be a manager of the women's basketball team, unfortunately, for observant Jews who want to go to a public university, there are not a ton of options. Right. There's some that are up and coming, and I hope in the next decade there are a lot more options. But generally speaking, you ask your typical Jewish day school senior who wants to live an observant lifestyle in college, where you want to pick, and it's like Rutgers, Maryland, Binghamton. And
like, UCLA, you got to check UCLA off the box now.
I have a couple of friends who are there, but again, like especially East Coast. So so you don't have so many options to pick between. I loved Binghamton because I came for a Shabbat. The Chabad was so welcoming. The JLIC couple was absolutely amazing, and they want Torah growth, and they want to see your Israel year continue on throughout your 4 years of college, to continue on your lifestyle. And overall, it's just an incredible experience. And I got into the business school here, and I had always been really passionate about fulfilling those dreams. Also, I'm very ambitious when it comes to like professionally and stuff. So I really felt like Binghamton was kind of like that best of both, of every single possible world. And knowing that there would be some type of basketball involvement as well while I was here was obviously a priority. I didn't realize how much of a priority it would be, but now, like looking back, there is no other place that I would have been able to pursue this, and I've been so happy to do it as well. So. And
the winters in Vestal, New York, they're really nice, right?
Oh my gosh.
Yes, I'm just checking.
So sunny, so warm. It's as if it's LA.
It's as if it's LA. But even being a manager on a basketball team, that takes time commitment. And obviously coach let you do that piece. So were there even discussions when you were a manager saying like, hey, I can't do this, I can't do this? What did that piece look like?
Yeah, she would ask me every so often, like, hey, we have like this exhibition game on Saturday at 2. And I'd be like, I'm so sorry. Like, I love supporting these girls. I would love to be there, like cheering behind them. But unfortunately, like I can't be there. Like it's Shabbat. And she comes from like a little bit of Jewish awareness from her background. So she like kind of understood. But it was interesting, like transitioning into a way that I would feel comfortable with it like from that transition from manager to player. Cause I've been saying like, actually no, but now like, let's make it work. Yeah, sure. So that was funny too. But at the end of the day, like I was there as often as I could be. It was a group of 4 or 5 of us, depending the semester. So when I wasn't there, it wasn't like they didn't have another manager.
Right.
So it worked like as a rotation.
Yeah, it was really hard being the manager of the JTS basketball team. You can just ask your parents about that. Haley, take us to your Binghamton career. You get to Binghamton, you had a really successful career. Also, I mean, what you're doing is historic. You played NCAA basketball through a pandemic. So maybe take us about your dreams and goals when you got to Binghamton and what that was, what that looked like during the pandemic, and how you met Mia.
Well, I think coming into Binghamton, I didn't really know what to expect. Being a freshman, your playing time and everything is a little different. So going over the course of 4 years, I got to see kind of myself grow on and off the court. But yeah, my experience at Binghamton my first 2 years, pre-COVID, was so much different than my last 2 years with COVID. Sophomore year, we had a great year. We won 20 games, went 9-0 to start off the season, and then our season got cut short.
Wow.
We were supposed to play in a postseason tournament, and then we obviously couldn't do that. That's because that's when COVID just really started to take over, and everyone got sent home. So that was kind of like hurtful for us and for our seniors at the time. But then we came back my junior year and no fans, basically like a dead zone for however long we played. And it was different. And then, this past year, when Mia joined, it started to be somewhat normal. I want to say, like, fans were back. We played a full schedule. I ended my career in a way that I wanted to, similar to my freshman year, having fans, making it feel normal again, which is all I really wanted to do with my senior year. And my meeting this one over here, I think when she joined the team as a manager, we weren't expecting her to join the team as a player.
Right. Tell us that story, because that's important, right?
Yeah, it was. I mean, when she was a manager, we kind of knew she had that basketball like niche in her, because she would be like rebounding for us before games and everything. But we didn't really get to talk to her as much as a manager, because, like she said, there was a bunch of managers. They kind of rotated in and out. But I do remember when your first practice as a manager, when she introduced herself, like I remember that day. But then come to flash forward to December, Christmas break, when she's on campus and it's just basketball on winter break, and Mia just comes and she's working out. And at the time I didn't know the scenario, but to find out that she was going to be helping us out, I think it was eye-opening for us as a team, because
well, tell us that scenario, right? Because it was half the team had COVID or something.
Yeah, we were down a lot of players.
Like half
the team, people with COVID and quarantine, and then we had people that are injured. So we really literally had half of our team.
Wow.
And so when we found out that Mia was coming back to help us out, like, it was, like I said, it was so eye-opening for us, because we knew that she had a life, and she was doing things. So for her to like just put everything on hold for us, it was like super awesome to hear, and to hear that, like, when we were talking to her, like, about coming back, and her saying how she had like canceled a trip to go to Florida to come back here and be with us, like, and to get that opportunity, it kind of put in perspective the opportunity that we have, because every day, like, I forget how like crazy our lives are, like, I forget that I'm a Division I athlete, and I forget how like awesome that is to a lot of people. So to hear like Mia, like, and how bad like she wanted to be a part of it, and to kind of be a part of our team, like, it was really awesome to hear.
And so, Mia, take us to that first weekend. I believe the snowstorm, your mom comes up, it's Shabbat, and you're not going to do Shabbat alone, but you have this Shabbat dinner for the Binghamton Bearcats. And how did you get them there, and what was that like? What was the menu is the real important question.
What was the menu?
The deli roll.
The deli roll, yeah. I had teammates who were like taking home loads of leftovers. Like, they had never like had this food before. It was very funny. But like, going backwards a little bit, my mom was supposed to come because my parents, like, biggest, like, as like nervous parents, knowing that your child's going back to a campus that like none of her housemates are home, the community is just not there for another 3 weeks. Like, they were like kind of bugging out a little bit, as like anxious parents would. But they're like, you got to take this opportunity. We'll like come and visit you throughout the 3 weeks, so you're not alone. So my mom was planning on coming up that Shabbat, but we got hit by like a big snowstorm, and she's like, I'll come up Sunday maybe instead of over Shabbat, but like, are you gonna be okay? And I don't know who was in the locker room. It was like a Wednesday. I don't really know how it happened, but I was like talking about how like Shabbat dinner, like, usually you do it with like your friends and your family, and a couple girls are like, let's all do Shabbat dinner. And
wow.
I was like, for real? And they're like, yeah, let's do it. And so I think like it took me 3 or 4 hours to just make sure that I had enough food and the means to do it. And then I sent out a text. I was like, hey, you guys are my new family now, and I like to celebrate Shabbat with my family. How do you guys all feel about coming over for dinner? And literally everyone came. We all like sat around.
Including the coaches?
No.
Oh,
No.
just the players. Okay.
Just the players. But to be completely honest, like, up until that moment, I had really only interacted with the team in a basketball setting.
Right.
And so for me, I was more looking forward, not just about sharing my culture, but like really getting to know my teammates as people, which like I write a little bit about in my blog post. But I often feel like athletes are only viewed as athletes and that depth of who they actually are as people is overlooked.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, like coming from a background of being on numerous different teams, having so many friends from all the teams that I've been on, like I knew that like I really wanted more than anything was to like meet these girls as people that like could potentially become some of my best friends. And like I think it happened. I think it worked out very well. So like
I love what you said there, because I mean I've been doing this show for the last 18 months and speaking to really not just high level athletes but broadcasters, people that we see on TV, right? And we don't talk about sports. It's called Rabbi on the Sidelines, but what do we talk about? Faith and what you just said, the depth of the individual. When you actually ask somebody, I mean, we're coming up to Pesach, obviously, and they're going to sit around and ask questions. But when you ask somebody a question, they have that entry into answering. Often we're not asked those questions. And it seems like what you did at the Shabbat dinner was said, number one, invitation, but number two, who are you, right? Beyond the Division I athlete, Haley, as you are. I'm much more of a individual, a person, and get to know me. So I just love that. And what was the either fallout or the continuation of that Shabbat dinner? Were there more Shabbat dinners? Was there a different camaraderie on the court? What was the after effects of that?
After that dinner, like I knew that this was more than just a game and more than just a gig. Just the way that like everyone asked each other questions and cared about each other and were able to like leave basketball on the court just for 2 hours and even like put away our phones for like majority of it. It was very special. And I mean, I had a lot of teammates who are now my friends, like who would like help you out for this situation. Like one of my teammates drove my car back on a Friday afternoon. One of my teammates consistently offered to walk me for Saturday games. And then also just like, once I got there, like, can we hang out with you? Like, while we have like 3 or 4 hours in between our shoot around and our game. And those were like the memories that I will forever be grateful for. It's the things outside of the basketball. Granted, like during basketball, these girls were like carrying me, like pushing me, making sure I was able to like stand up straight and do the right thing as much as I possibly could. Like coming in after they've been practicing and preparing for 7-8 months, like, and I'm there like 3 weeks in, like just thrown in, like that was crazy. But they were like, they embraced it. They made me included on the court. But what meant the most was the off the court experience.
So Haley, take us to your first Shabbat dinner and what that was like and what it meant to you, not just as a player, but really as a captain of the team, trying to bring these girls together.
Yeah, I think like when the time period that Mia got there as a player was really hard for us, just dealing with all the injuries and COVID and everything like that it was just hard. So I think when we had that dinner, I remember getting there and I remember first of all thinking, wow, we are all underdressed for this event. Like we were not prepared. But I remember getting there and anyone that knows our team off the court just knows that we're a bunch of goofballs. So I think being there and having everybody just asking me questions or like being so observant and like really like taking everything in was really awesome to see from my perspective, just as a leader of this team. Like it was really awesome to just see everybody come together. Like Mia said, like off the court, in a different environment, an environment that we've really never been in before. And just to kind of like take in Mia's culture and what she does and everything like that. It was really awesome to see. And I think it definitely helped us grow a lot off the court. And I think after that, we kind of like really started to gel really well together and embrace Mia and be there for Mia. And it was really eye-opening for me. And it was an awesome experience.
So I know we're asking a lot about Haley, what you learned from Mia, but Mia, what have you learned from Haley as a captain of a Division I basketball team?
Oh, where do I even begin? No, I think like Haley is the epitome of like staying calm when things get tough. And like,
Nice.
She's like fully a role model. But the stuff that this girl went through, like your average college athlete does not go through 2 years of a pandemic and then your senior year with half the team being out. Like that is just not a normal experience. And like Haley did not need to embrace me at all. Like she created her space here. Like she's known here 52 threes in a season like that. Those are like great stats. Like people know Haley, but like yet like she like gave me the time of day, not just like to teach me on the court, but like again like to get to know me as a person. And I just think that like when things get tough, like that's when you really see like like who are the true leaders and what are they capable of, and their composure. And I'm forever in awe by the way that she was able to compose herself through thick and thin and lead the team just by how she was. Not even by the words that she said. It wasn't even that, like, sure, she like, you said great things sometimes, you're great. But like it was really like it was how you came across to us, the respect, the mutual love for it. And I think that like Haley does not get enough credit for that throughout her career.
So Haley, there's a teaching in our tradition that Mia knows well. I'm not sure if she used this in the locker room talk, but Na'aseh v'nishma. That first we'll do, and then we'll figure out later what we actually learned from that situation. And what I see between the two of you and your team is exactly that. And Haley, there was an interview that you were quoted that said your favorite class in college was prep for public service. And you talked about really wanting to go into a leadership position on the court. What did you learn on that in that class that, number one, made it your favorite class, but what you can bring to your future, whether it's in coaching or any type of leadership activities that you'll be involved with?
Yeah, I think the irony of taking that class was that I took it first semester, like this past in the fall, which was when I really needed to step into a huge leadership role, because that was my first semester being senior and kind of a leader of this team. So I think that class just kind of, I had it like once a week. And I think it just, every week, it just gave me something new that I could bring to the table for my team. And my leadership role on this team was different, but it was what it was because of the past leaders that I've had. So I knew being a leader of this team and what I had to do. And like Mia said, like with me being a senior and kind of embracing her, not a lot of teams have that. Like I still have a lot of teams kind of have a senior that's like distant, or a senior that doesn't really talk to the freshman, or a senior that is kind of like is just there because she's old. And like that was something that I never really wanted to do. Being one of the only seniors, I didn't want to exclude myself or take myself out of a team because I was the only senior. I wanted to make sure everybody was included, and I wanted to have the best experience that I could have. And so being that type of leader and just embracing everybody and having everybody included in everything that we do and making sure everybody was kind of the same was super important to me and how I was going to finish my career.
I know, but you also took part of an NCAA leadership conference. What does that look like to bring athletes together, to realize that you're part of something much bigger than just the Binghamton Bearcat basketball team and much bigger than just like the ball? Yeah,
no, I think that conference I went to was super amazing for me. It was 2 days from like, I think 11 a.m. to 4. And it was just an awesome environment to be in. Obviously it was on Zoom because of COVID, but it was awesome because there was so many athletes from so many different sports in one setting to talk about how they wanted to lead their team and their program. And I was getting such great advice from other athletes that were maybe dealing with the same things that I was dealing with or had different experiences. So it was really cool to kind of take their advice and kind of remember that and then spill out my own advice and what I had to give to other student athletes. So I think that program was super helpful leading up to my senior season. And taking the things that I learned there, whether it was being a vocal leader or leading by action, I think what I learned in that conference is going to take me beyond just basketball and going to the coaching world and even just communicating with others in just regular life.
And what has this experience with Mia taught you, for instance, when you're going to be a head coach of South Carolina one day? You replace Don Staley, and a young Jewish kid walks into the gym and says, I want to play for you, but these are my conditions. After learning from Mia's experience, how do you see yourself incorporating the lessons that you've learned into your coaching and leadership career?
I think if I've taken one thing away from Mia's experience and my 4 years, it's that life is bigger than basketball. And if somebody wants to come in and be a part of a program or a Division I program at the matter and be a part of, like, if I'm at like my program, I'm not going to stop anyone. I will make the adjustments like what Mia had to do and everything like that. It's just, to me, basketball, yes, it's such a big part of your college career, but there's so much more to that. And like Mia said, the relationships that I made over the course of 4 years, the memories that I've made, like, everywhere, whether it's in the gym or in the classroom, just everything over the course of 4 years has made my experience what it was. And I wouldn't be the athlete or the student that I am without the people that I'm surrounded by.
So, Mia, I want to bring up one other topic which deals with the Jewish world, but also that's Israel, specifically on the college campus. I know Binghamton has obviously a large Jewish population, a very active Israel advocacy piece. Was the topic of, for instance, Israel ever brought into the locker room for whatever reason? Either people saw something on TV, they heard it's a dangerous place. Last year during the Gaza-Israel war, were you ever sort of an advocate in that field, or that you had to be an educator and really step onto the college campus as a young woman saying, this is who I am, not just as an American athlete, but also I have this other connection to this other land far away?
I mean, to tell you the truth, the team, whenever they asked me, like, what year are you? And I would, like, explain, like, graduated in 2019, took a gap year, like, now I'm here, but I'm a junior. The response to being in Israel was like, wow, that's so cool. Like, there was never anything brought up about the conflict. Nothing ever brought up about, like, whoa, is the Middle East scary? Like, ooh. Granted, I'm, like, in a bunch of other clubs on campus, and I've had peers ask me, like, yeah, can you explain the conflict to me? I'm like, wait, like, so where do you want me to begin? Like, during, like, the Bible, like, biblical times, or, like, most recent 10 years? Like, I don't really know where we could start. But really interacting with peers from so many different backgrounds outside of basketball. It's been a very thrilling, eye-opening experience to hear, A, how surprised you could be when people do know what's up, and then B, to be surprised when you know how little people know what's going on.
Yes.
And right now I'm serving actually as the education chair for the Binghamton University Zionist organization.
Amazing.
We call it BUZO. And the whole team came to a fundraiser event for Save the Child's Heart, helped raise money. Like, I was like, hey guys, I'm the chair of this program. Do you guys want to come? No questions asked. Everybody came. Everybody donated, like, I think it was like $25, whatever it was. And, like, that again was like one of those experiences, like it literally, like, if they respect me and I respect them, and we have this, like, mutual, like, at that point, love for each other, like, then we're gonna support you in whatever you're passionate about. And I remember, like, it was mostly the Jewish community who was at this event. They walked in and everyone's like, what is going on here? And it was just, like, so like, it was amazing. It was awesome to show them a part of my world and have the Jewish community, like, be like, wow, like, we don't just have to educate people about Israel within our close circles, but we can really open it up and create, like, this greater community. So
that's what I think is so amazing. Exactly what you said. And obviously we're in the Israel advocacy world. Your dad is an extreme Israel advocate, and often seen with the APEC Policy Conference. That's our usual annual reunion. But the fact that we go outside of our own walls to not preach the message, but to teach who we are as a people. And then, like you just said, for the Jewish community to understand that we have advocates and allies outside of our walls. And that is why we must do exactly what you're doing. And that's why I was going to ask you, when you wrote the Times of Israel blog post, who was the audience, right? Was it me? Was it my children? Was it Haley and her Catholic school community? Who was that audience? And what has been the response once you wrote that?
I think that, thinking back to what my intentions were behind writing the blog, it was for, like, numerous reasons. One was, like, this team deserved so much credit, and I wanted it to be publicized, and I didn't feel like there were so many outlets to do that. And specifically to the Jewish people, I feel like so much of what the Jewish people write about is about the Jewish people, or about Israel. And I wanted to say, like, hey, like, you don't have to be Jewish to be an amazing person. And that was one part. I remember showing Haley for the first time, and I was like, listen, I'm a little nervous about this, but I need you to look at it. Let me know what you think. And when she, like, gave me the thumbs up, the green light, I was like, all right, like I'm going to publicize this. I'm going to publish it. But now, like, looking back, I think that my greatest intention was that idea of showing, like, people that you can always find an opportunity to be a Kiddush Hashem, to really raise the Jewish people's name, and you don't have to do it so forcefully. You can just be yourself in the regular world. You could do your thing, do what you're passionate about, and as long as, again, like, I feel like that respecting is so important. As long as you show that you're going to respect others for their backgrounds, for their beliefs, then they're going to give it back in return. So I think that at the end of the day, like my target audience was was the Jewish people, was the basketball world, and especially like the future. I hope that a couple 10 or 11-year-old girls, honestly, if only one read it, I feel like I accomplished what I was trying to accomplish. And
has there been outreach by any people within those worlds?
yes, oh my gosh, the overwhelming amount of support and love that I've gotten. I helped some fifth graders actually in LA do a project. I've been on a couple podcasts now. I don't know. Howard Blass wrote a article about me. I have another podcast tomorrow. I'm speaking at a sports center. Like all these things I could have never experienced. And honestly, I'm so grateful for it. If I never ever could have expected this to blow up the way that it did, but it's a testament to what the girls were able to do alongside me. This is just as much their story as it is mine.
Well, I think that is so important. Actually, a good friend of mine and of the show, Jory Epstein, who obviously you know also.
Love her, yeah.
Exactly. Her book is right behind me, The Upstander, and Max Glaubin. I know you know that family as well. When she does her interviews, in fact, behind her, she doesn't have these sports books, but she has Gemara. She has the rabbinic tradition. And I asked her, why? Like, you're interviewing Jerry Jones, but you have the Talmud behind you. And she said exactly what you said, that I'm going to live the life of who I am and not hide who I am. So I know you were quoted as saying that sometimes you do have a Masechet, a tractate of Talmud in the locker room. What are you carrying around these days and studying?
I was carrying around Masechet Megillah. The goal at the time, it's a work in progress, but I was hoping to finish the Masechet before Purim. Life got crazy, but I did tell myself that like when we're on the road and it's a lot harder to be Jewish than it would be on day to day. Like I had my phone, I had Safari out. I was reading the Parsha, I was reading the Gemara every so often, just to like remind myself of that consistency and that value that I had. So I was able to fit it in when I could, and waiting for games on Shabbat, I was able to read different Jewish texts when I could. But it was really a great experience to really figure out how to fit that into a crazy lifestyle.
So Haley, as your Binghamton career comes to an end and graduation in a little while, what do you see yourself doing in the next couple of years?
It's a scary question, but it's a real question. You mentioned earlier I go into coaching. So right now I'm in the process of finding a grad assistant position somewhere and getting my master's that way, and then climbing the ropes of being a coach through connections and stuff like that. So I think just being a coach is something I've wanted to do since I was little, because it's in my blood. My dad was a college football coach. My brother is currently a coach as well at Division II school for football. And so it's just kind of something that I've wanted to do my whole life. And I want to help young girls have the experience that I did, and if not, make it better for them.
And Mia, are we going to find you on the Bima, on the court, on the Bima, on the court? Tell us what this future looks like for you.
The future is so unknown. Like you couldn't have ever predicted that 8 players were going to be out this season. You can't predict that COVID's going to be in and out when it is. I'm kind of just riding the wave right now. I'm grateful for the relationships that I've made thus far, and I know that regardless of what happens next, that I've got this Jewish piece really working out for me, and I've got the basketball piece really working out for me also, regardless of the official position that I hold. So grateful.
And what does this next year look like at Binghamton? Are you now back to manager status? Do you go to the team, or how does that work?
You know, it's kind of like the same vibe, riding the wave right now. I've kind of been put in this position where it's like, we'll see where we need you, and I'm all for it. I care about these girls. I care about the program, so I can help out and wherever they need me. I only can be a player officially for this season, so I won't. We'll just wait to see. We'll wait to see where life takes us. Yeah.
And the last question is something that's been a big topic in the sports world today, and that's mental health. I know you mentioned Mia, that Judaism is a hurdle only if you make it one. And I think that's true actually in the mental health world as well. What is it like as a Division I athlete, as a full-time student, as a people of faith, right? What does the mental health look like within the Division I basketball world, and then what can be done better to assist athletes in a better way?
Yeah. So I don't know if you know or if you follow Binghamton, but we recently just lost one of our mental health players.
Cross player from Syracuse, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Due to mental health, and I just think like I was just talking to mom about this the other day. Like for me, mental health has been such a huge part of my 4 years. You know, our team has been through a lot, and it's like I said earlier, it's bigger than basketball, and it goes beyond just scoring, winning games, practicing. So I think for me, just knowing that like you have an outlet as a student athlete. I know there's like some study that says like I forget what percentage, but some amount of percentage of student athletes deal with mental health but don't speak about it or hide it because they feel like they have to, because they have this stereotype like they're the best. They have this like title like we're above everybody else, which really is not the case at all. And being a student athlete for 4 years at a Division I university, I can attest to that. It's more than just, you know, us playing. And if any student athlete feels the need that they're going through something, or that they feel scared to speak up about it because they're a student athlete and they're supposed to just handle it on their own or go about and play their games, like that's not how it's supposed to be. And our team had a team meeting to talk about what happened to the men's lacrosse player. And I think the biggest thing from that meeting was just knowing that like we have each other, and like when it comes down to it, like being on a team, that's like one of the best parts about it, is that we have each other and that we're all there for each other. And no matter what, you should never be scared to talk about anything with teammates, or coaches, or anything. You feel security and safety amongst each other. It's a family, and I think just having that family atmosphere over 4 years helps a lot with mental health. But yeah, I just think mental health is a huge part of a student athlete's life, and especially it's been a huge part of mine.
And then Mia, maybe just speak a little about the sports in the Jewish community, because mental health is now a bigger part of the Jewish community. We're grateful here at Sinai Temple in Los Angeles that we in fact just opened up a mental health center with a full-time mental health professional in a synagogue, in a shul, which is really sort of unheard of. So maybe Mia, your experience about what mental health looks like and all the challenges that you have not dealt with, but really overcome to be such a successful young woman.
Yeah, I would just say that I heard a line once from a madricha, like a counselor in Israel during my year, and she said to me, "Mia, I want you to understand you have a gift of being a leader, but I don't want you to ever forget that that being a leader can be lonely." And I think that, like, going back to Judaism, the beauty of like a minyan, right? That concept of you praying with 10 people, like that's where like your prayers can be really uplifted. I think that it's special that in a synagogue atmosphere, in a learning atmosphere, Judaism really emphasizes the fact that you should be surrounded by others. And I think that goes the same for a team. And the meeting that we had as a team this past week is also another huge testament to Haley and her leadership. A senior could walk away from the team once the season's over and call it a day. This senior made sure that we were all in one place to talk about what happened, because she saw that it was important that we did that. And tell you the truth, that the tragedy happened over Shabbat, and I opened my phone to loads of texts about it from my team, from people just around school, like just asking like how we're doing. And after speaking with Haley, and we really like, I feel like she was really able to help me as an individual and personally, like really understand and take it in. And that's a huge kudos to her for taking the time to just talk to me as an individual, sure that I'm okay too. That your senior leader postseason isn't necessarily always going to do. And so connecting it all back to one another, like the same way that a team is important and the people that you care about that are there for you. I think that value is so instilled within Judaism also. And it's been really special to like really see them mirror each other, and the parallels between the two. Of our team is 15 and a minyan is 10. And I feel like there's gotta be some mathematical, I don't know, it's cool, but it's been a really special experience to have both communities there for me when I need them.
Absolutely. Well, I'll have to work on the gematria at that one for sure. Haley Moore, Mia Raskin, it has been a true honor to have you on Rabbi on the Sidelines. Really the true definition of bringing together the sports and the faith world. You both are role models, not just to your teammates, to the Binghamton community, to the Jewish community, but to the community at large. We wish you much success in the years ahead, and we look forward to following your journey. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.